Chapter 6 of Canyons of the Colorado. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Canyons of the Colorado by John Wesley Powell. Chapter 6 From Flaming Gorge to the Gate of Lodore. One must not think of a mountain range as a line of peaks standing on a plain, but as a broad platform many miles wide from which mountains have been carved by the waters. One must conceive, too, that this plateau is cut by gulches and canyons in many directions, and that beautiful valleys are scattered about at different altitudes. The first series of canyons we are about to explore constitutes a river channel through such a range of mountains. The canyon is cut nearly halfway through the range, then turns to the east and is cut along the central line or axis, gradually crossing it to the south. Keeping this direction for more than 50 miles, it then turns abruptly to a southwest course, and goes diagonally through the southern slope of the range. This much we know before entering, as we made a partial exploration of the region last fall, climbing many of its peaks, and in a few places reaching the brink of the canyon walls and looking over precipices many hundreds of feet high to the water below. Here and there the walls are broken by lateral canyons, the channels of little streams entering the river. Through 2 or 3 of these we found our way down to the Green in early winter, and walked along the low water beach at the foot of the cliffs for several miles. Where the river has this general easterly direction, the western part only has cut for itself a canyon, while the eastern has formed a broad valley called, in honor of an old-time trapper, Brown's Park, and long known as a favorite winter resort for mountain men and Indians. May 30th. This morning we are ready to enter the mysterious canyon, and start with some anxiety. The old mountaineers tell us that it cannot be run. The Indians say, "Water heap catch 'em," but all are eager for the trial, and off we go. Entering Flaming Gorge, we quickly run through it on a swift current and emerge into a little park. Half a mile below, the river wheels sharply to the left and enters another canyon cut into the mountain. We enter the narrow passage. On either side the walls rapidly increase in altitude. On the left are overhanging ledges and cliffs, 500, 1,000, 1,500 feet high. On the right the rocks are broken and ragged, and the water fills the channel from cliff to cliff. Now the river turns abruptly around a point to the right, and the waters plunge swiftly down among great rocks, and here we have our first experience with canyon rapids. I stand up on the deck of my boat to seek a way among the wave-beaten rocks. All untried as we are with such waters, the moments are filled with intense anxiety. Soon our boats reach the swift current, a stroke or two, now on this side, now on that, and we thread the narrow passage with exhilarating velocity, mounting the high waves, whose foaming crests dash over us, and plunging into the troughs, until we reach the quiet water below. Then comes a feeling of great relief. Our first rapid is run. Another mile and we come into the valley again. Let me explain this canyon. Where the river turns to the left above, it takes a course directly into the mountain, penetrating to its very heart, then wheels back upon itself and runs out into the valley from which it started, only half a mile below the point at which it entered. So the canyon is in the form of an elongated letter U, with the apex in the center of the mountain. We name it Horseshoe Canyon. Soon we leave the valley and enter another short canyon, very narrow at first, but widening below as the canyon walls increase in height. Here we discover the mouth of a beautiful little creek coming down through its narrow water-worn cleft. Just at its entrance there is a park of 200 or 300 acres, walled on every side by almost vertical cliffs hundreds of feet in altitude, with 3 gateways through the walls, one up the river, another down, and a third through which the creek comes in. The river is broad, deep, and quiet, and its waters mirror towering rocks. Kingfishers are playing about the streams, and so we adopt as names Kingfisher Creek, Kingfisher Park, and Kingfisher Canyon. At night we camp at the foot of this canyon. Our general course this day has been south, but here the river turns to the east around a point which is rounded to the shape of a dome. On its sides little cells have been carved by the action of the water, and in these pits, which cover the face of the dome, hundreds of swallows have built their nests. As they flit about the cliffs, they look like swarms of bees, giving to the whole the appearance of a colossal beehive of the old-time form, and so we name it Beehive Point. The opposite wall is a vast amphitheater, rising in a succession of terraces to a height of 1,200 or 1,500 feet. Each step is built of red sandstone, with a face of naked red rock, and a glacis clothed with verdure. So the amphitheater seems banded red and green, and the evening sun is playing with roseate flashes on the rocks, with shimmering green on the cedar's spray, and with iridescent gleams on the dancing waves. The landscape revels in the sunshine. May 31st. We start down another canyon and reach rapids made dangerous by high rocks lying in the channel, so we run ashore and let our boats down with lines. In the afternoon we come to more dangerous rapids and stop to examine them. I find we must do the same work again, but being on the wrong side of the river to obtain a foothold, must first cross over, no easy matter in such a current, with rapids and rocks below. We take the pioneer boat, Emma Dean, over, and unload her on the bank. Then she returns and takes another load. Running back and forth, she soon has half our cargo over. Then one of the larger boats is manned and taken across, but is carried down almost to the rocks in spite of hard rowing. The other boats follow and make the landing, and we go into camp for the night. At the foot of the cliff on this side there is a long slope covered with pines. Under these we make our beds, and soon after sunset are seeking rest and sleep. The cliffs on either side are of red sandstone and stretch toward the heavens 2,500 feet. On this side the long pine-clad slope is surmounted by perpendicular cliffs with pines on their summits. The wall on the other side is bare rock from the water's edge up 2,000 feet, then slopes back, giving footing to pines and cedars. As the twilight deepens, the rocks grow dark and somber. The threatening roar of the water is loud and constant, and I lie awake with thoughts of the morrow and the canyons to come, interrupted now and then by characteristics of the scenery that attract my attention. And here I make a discovery. On looking at the mountain directly in front, the steepness of the slope is greatly exaggerated, while the distance to its summit and its true altitude are correspondingly diminished. I have heretofore found that to judge properly of the slope of a mountainside one must see it in profile. In coming down the river this afternoon, I observed the slope of a particular part of the wall and made an estimate of its altitude. While at supper I noticed the same cliff from a position facing it, and it seemed steeper, but not half so high. Now lying on my side and looking at it, the true proportions appear. This seems a wonder, and I rise to take a view of its standing. It is the same cliff as at supper time. Lying down again, it is the cliff as seen in profile, with a long slope and distant summit. Musing on this, I forget the morrow and the canyons to come. I have found a way to estimate the altitude and slope of an inclination, in like manner as I can judge of distance along the horizon. The reason is simple. A reference to the stereoscope will suggest it. The distance between the eyes forms a base line for optical triangulation. June 1st. Today we have had an exciting ride. The river rolls down the canyon at a wonderful rate, and with no rocks in the way, we make almost railroad speed. Here and there the water rushes into a narrow gorge. The rocks to the side roll it into the center in great waves, and the boats go leaping and bounding over these like things of life, reminding me of scenes witnessed in Middle Park, herds of startled deer bounding through forests beset with fallen timber. I mention the resemblance to some of the hunters, and so striking is it that the expression, "See the blacktails jumping the logs," comes to be a common one. At times the waves break and roll over the boats, which necessitates much bailing and obliges us to stop occasionally for that purpose. At one time we run 12 miles in an hour, stoppages included. Last spring I had a conversation with an old Indian named Pariat, who told me about one of his tribe attempting to run this canyon. "The rocks," he said, holding his hands above his head, his arms vertical, and looking between them to the heavens, "the rocks heap, heap high. The water go hoo-oog, hoo-oog. Water pony lie up buck. Water catch 'em. No see 'em Injun no more. No see 'em squaw any more. No see 'em papoose any more." Those who have seen these wild Indian ponies rearing alternately before and behind, or bucking, as it is called in the vernacular, will appreciate his description. At last we come to calm water, and a threatening roar is heard in the distance. Slowly approaching the point whence the sound issues, we come near to falls, and tie up just above them on the left. Here we shall be compelled to make a portage, so we unload the boats and fasten a long line to the bow of the smaller one and another to the stern, and moor her close to the brink of the fall. Then the bow line is taken below and made fast. The stern line is held by 5 or 6 men, and the boat let down as long as they can hold her against the rushing waters. Then, letting go one end of the line, it runs through the ring. The boat leaps over the fall and is caught by the lower rope. Now we rest for the night. June 2nd. This morning we make a trail among the rocks, transport the cargoes to a point below the fall, let the remaining boats over, and are ready to start before noon. On a high rock by which the trail passes we find the inscription, Ashley, 1805. The third figure is obscure, some of the party reading it 1835, some 1855. James Baker, an old-time mountaineer, once told me about a party of men starting down the river, and Ashley was named as one. The story runs that the boat was swamped, and some of the party drowned in one of the canyons below. The word Ashley is a warning to us, and we resolve on great caution. Ashley Falls is the name we give to the cataract. The river is very narrow, the right wall vertical for 200 or 300 feet, the left towering to a great height, with a vast pile of broken rocks lying between the foot of the cliff and the water. Some of the rocks broken down from the ledge above have tumbled into the channel and caused this fall. One great cubical block 30 or 40 feet high stands in the middle of the stream, and the waters, parting to either side, plunge down about 12 feet, and are broken again by the smaller rocks into a rapid below. Immediately below the falls the water occupies the entire channel, there being no talus at the foot of the cliffs. We embark and run down a short distance, where we find a landing place for dinner. On the waves again all the afternoon. Near the lower end of this canyon, to which we have given the name of Red Canyon, is a little park, where streams come down from distant mountain summits and enter the river on either side, and here we camp for the night under 2 stately pines. June 3rd. This morning we spread our rations, clothes, etc. on the ground to dry, and several of the party go out for a hunt. I take a walk of 5 or 6 miles up to a pine grove park, its grassy carpet bedecked with crimson velvet flowers, set in groups on the stems of pear-shaped cactus plants. Patches of painted cups are seen here and there, with yellow blossoms protruding through scarlet bracts. Little blue-eyed flowers are peeping through the grass, and the air is filled with a fragrance from the white blossoms of the spirea. A mountain brook runs through the midst, ponded below by beaver dams. It is a quiet place for retirement from the raging waters of the canyon. It will be remembered that the course of the river from Flaming Gorge to Beehive Point is in a southerly direction and at right angles to the Uinta Mountains, and cuts into the range until it reaches a point within 5 miles of the crest, where it turns to the east, and pursues a course not quite parallel to the trend of the range, but crosses the axis slowly in a direction a little south of east. Thus there is a triangular track between the river and the axis of the mountain, with its acute angle extending eastward. I climb the mountain overlooking this country. To the east the peaks are not very high, and already most of the snow has melted, but little patches lie here and there under the lee of ledges of rock. To the west the peaks grow higher and the snowfields larger. Between the brink of the canyon and the foot of these peaks there is a high bench. A number of creeks have their sources in the snowbanks to the south and run north into the canyon, tumbling down from 3,000 to 5,000 feet in a distance of 5 or 6 miles. Along their upper courses they run through grassy valleys, but as they approach Red Canyon they rapidly disappear under the general surface of the country and emerge into the canyon below in deep dark gorges of their own. Each of these short lateral canyons is marked by a succession of cascades and a wild confusion of rocks and trees and fallen timber and thick undergrowth. The little valleys above are beautiful parks. Between the parks are stately pine forests, half-hiding ledges of red sandstone. Mule deer and elk abound, grizzly bears, too, are abundant, and here wild cats, wolverines, and mountain lions are at home. The forest aisles are filled with the music of birds, and the parks are decked with flowers. Noisy brooks meander through them, ledges of moss-covered rocks are seen, and gleaming in the distance are the snowfields, and the mountain tops are away in the clouds. June 4th. We start early and run through to Brown's Park. Halfway down the valley a spur of red mountain stretches across the river, which cuts a canyon through it. Here the walls are comparatively low, but vertical. A vast number of swallows have built their adobe houses on the face of the cliffs, on either side of the river. The waters are deep and quiet, but the swallows are swift and noisy enough, sweeping by in their curved paths through the air or chattering from the rocks, while the young ones stretch their little heads on naked necks through the doorways of their mud houses and clamor for food. They are a noisy people. We call this Swallow Canyon. Still down the river we glide until an early hour in the afternoon, when we go into camp under a giant cottonwood standing on the right bank a little way back from the stream. The party has succeeded in killing a fine lot of wild ducks, and during the afternoon a mess of fish is taken. June 5th. With one of the men I climb a mountain off on the right. A long spur with broken ledges of rock puts down to the river, and along its course, or up the hogback as it is called, I make the ascent. Dunn, who is climbing to the same point, is coming up the gulch. 2 hours' hard work has brought us to the summit. These mountains are all verdure-clad. Pine and cedar forests are set on green terraces. Snow-clad mountains are seen in the distance to the west. The plains of the upper Green stretch out before us to the north, until they are lost in the blue heavens, but half of the river-cleft range intervenes, and the river itself is at our feet. This half-range beyond the river is composed of long ridges nearly parallel with the valley. On the farther ridge to the north, 4 creeks have their sources. These cut through the intervening ridges, one of which is much higher than that on which they head, by canyon gorges. Then they run with gentle curves across the valley, their banks set with willows, box elders, and cottonwood groves. To the east we look up the valley of the Vermilion, through which Fremont found his path on his way to the great parks of Colorado. The reading of the barometer taken, we start down in company, and reach camp tired and hungry, which does not abate one bit our enthusiasm as we tell of the day's work with its glory of landscape. June 6th. At daybreak I am awakened by a chorus of birds. It seems as if all the feathered songsters of the region have come to the old tree. Several species of warblers, woodpeckers and flickers above, meadowlarks in the grass, and wild geese in the river. I recline on my elbow and watch a lark near by, and then awaken my bedfellow to listen to my Jenny Lind. A real morning concert for me, none of your matinees. Our cook has been an ox driver, or bull-whacker, on the plains, in one of those long trains now no longer seen, and he hasn't forgotten his old ways. In the midst of the concert his voice breaks in. Roll out, bulls in the corral, chain up the gaps, roll out, roll out, roll out. This is our breakfast bell. Today we pass through the park and camp at the head of another canyon. June 7th. Today 2 or 3 of us climb to the summit of the cliff on the left, and find its altitude above camp to be 2,086 feet. The rocks are split with fissures, deep and narrow, sometimes 100 feet or more to the bottom, and these fissures are filled with loose earth and decayed vegetation in which lofty pines find root. On a rock we find a pool of clear, cold water, caught from yesterday evening's shower. After a good drink we walk out to the brink of the canyon and look down to the water below. I can do this now, but it has taken several years of mountain climbing to cool my nerves so that I can sit with my feet over the edge and calmly look down a precipice 2,000 feet. And yet I cannot look on and see another do the same. I must either bid him come away or turn my head. The canyon walls are buttressed on a grand scale, with deep alcoves intervening, columned crags crown the cliffs, and the river is rolling below. When we return to camp at noon, the sun shines in splendor on Vermilion walls, shaded into green and gray where the rocks are lichened over. The river fills the channel from wall to wall, and the canyon opens like a beautiful portal to a region of glory. This evening, as I write, the sun is going down, and the shadows are settling in the canyon. The Vermilion gleams and roseate hues, blending with the green and gray tints, are slowly changing to somber brown above, and black shadows are creeping over them below. And now it is a dark portal to a region of gloom, the gateway through which we are to enter on our voyage of exploration tomorrow. What shall we find? The distance from Flaming Gorge to Beehive Point is 9 2/3 miles. Besides passing through the gorge, the river runs through Horseshoe and Kingfisher canyons, separated by short valleys. The highest point on the walls at Flaming Gorge is 1,300 feet above the river. The east wall at the apex of Horseshoe Canyon is about 1,600 feet above the water's edge, and from this point the walls slope both to the head and foot of the canyon. Kingfisher Canyon, starting at the water's edge above, steadily increases in altitude to 1,200 feet at the foot. Red Canyon is 25 2/3 miles long, and its highest walls are about 2,500 feet. Brown's Park is a valley, bounded on either side by a mountain range, really an expansion of the canyon. The river through the park is 35 1/2 miles long, but passes through two short canyons on its way, where spurs from the mountains on the south are thrust across its course. End of Chapter 6.